All right. Welcome everybody to a pretty full-on eclipse day here in North America. Got my eclipse shades on. It happens to be pretty cloudy out where I am, which I'm kind of grateful for. Actually, give me a second. I'm gonna just shut the blinds and I'll tell you why in a second. Woo. Sorry, I should have done that before we started, but hey, we're here now. Um, Yeah, so there's an eclipse happening, total solar eclipse happening, crossing all the way across the North American continent. And I don't know, people, astrologers, people, human beings are of two minds about eclipses. There is a segment of the population that's like, oh, give me that, right? I'm gonna go get some and want to like go out and be in that. There's another segment of the population that's like, nah, I don't even mess with that. Like, shut the blinds, hide inside. And I'm kind of on the fence, but I lean more towards I don't want to be out in that. That light is weird. And so, yeah, uh, keeping the blinds drawn and staying inside. It's also cloudy here, so I'm not even tempted to go outside and try and gaze into it. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. I don't want to impress my values or my thoughts on anybody. But yeah. I think that going way on back to the Mesopotamians, Babylonians, Egyptians, and the uh, sort of founders of astrology, they're like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I've heard it is advisable to spend time in water, to hydrate, to stay near water. So yeah, that's a good reminder for me to be drinking water through this because I believe my little spiel is going to be going on during the eclipse. So if you need to step away and go gaze at it, more power to you. Tons of respect, but make sure to drink lots of water and stay hydrated. All right. So, yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for showing up on this Monday on Eclipse Day. Um, it's yeah, big stuff going down in space. It's pretty intense out there. I don't know how y'all been feeling, but this eclipse portal last couple of weeks have seemed pretty full on and have like dredged up some stuff for me. And I think dredged up some stuff in the collective. Good morning, Gina Maria. Nice to see you, my friend. Um, and I apologize, I didn't get my assignment done. I didn't do my eclipse collage just yet, and I apologize. Uh, I go to a monthly astrology talk that's hosted by the brilliant Sam Reynolds and the excellent Bad Pastor Lindsay Turner out here in Santa Fe, and this was this past Friday, and we were making kind of eclipse collages. And I didn't get mine done. I'm sorry. My dog ate it. My dog ate my eclipse collage. I'm sorry. Anywho, yeah, just taking a couple moments, letting people join and settle in and get comfortable here on all these streaming platforms. And just so everybody knows, I do this at through AstroStar Live, which is a excellent astrology app that has some brilliant astrologers dropping some excellent knowledge on a regular basis, including Sam Reynolds, who I just mentioned, who has been a keynote speaker at NORWAC multiple times, Tara Tall, Moses Sirigar, Cameron Allen, Michael Bartlett, a bunch of really smart folk are on AstroStar giving readings, doing talks, giving lectures, doing talks like this. I do this one each and every Monday at 10 a.m. Mountain, no, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Mountain time, 12 Central time, and 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's a better way of doing that. And so, yeah, tune on in. I also do it sometimes on Instagram. Now I'm putting it up on YouTube, trying to spread the word far and wide. So thanks for being here and tuning in. And make sure to check us out on the AstroStar Live app. It's a free download. You can get it from wherever you get your apps at. And follow me, follow some other people, and join the fun. Also, all of us are, excuse me, all of us are available for astrology readings through that app. So, yeah, jump on in, play around, and I hope to see you there. All right. So, Eclipse Day today, Monday, April the 8th. We are in the midst. We are about to experience a total solar eclipse at 19 degrees and 24 arc minutes of Aries. And yeah, I think I don't even know how I want to start. There's so many things that I want to say. I've been thinking about this for so long because this is one of the big moments of the astrology of 2024. Um, and this is the second total solar eclipse that America has received in, I don't know, the last one was 2017. And Sam Reynolds, who I respect a lot, made a post on Instagram yesterday where he's like, we're not thinking back to that one. These two eclipses are not related. The only reason that these two eclipses are related is that they went across America, right? And while that may seem spooky or creepy or foreboding, is does not have a astrological correlation. They're in different signs. They're going in different directions. The correlations that we find in eclipses are there's the Soros cycle, which I don't quite understand. So I'm not going to talk about that. And I highly recommend checking out Sam Reynolds' work because he gave a pretty good explanation about it. And then there's the Metonic cycle, which is basically every 19 years we'll get eclipses in the same place because of the way that the nodes of the moon move, which are where the eclipses happen. There's the south node and the north node, and they move retrograde through the zodiac, and those are the points. It is the path of the moon and the apparent path of the sun. And when they line up, that's the node, and that's where an eclipse happens. And so the last time we got an eclipse at zero at sorry 19 degrees of Aries was on April 8th 2005, I believe. And so there is a correlation or a sort of echo between maybe what was going on in 2005 and what might be occurring now. So I have absolutely no idea where I was in 2005. That is just like a blank spot. There's a black box there for me. But for those of you with better memories or journaling practices or who had smartphones back in 2000, did we have smartphones in 2005? I'm not sure. But you might want to go back and think about what was going on in the spring of 2005 for you, because maybe there is a echo, there is a rhyme, there is a correlation with some of the things that might be coming up right now. And so, yeah, just like thinking about the ways that eclipses function, right? And that every like 8 or 9 years, and then every 18 or 19 years, we get eclipses in the same place, and every 19 years we'll get them in the same degree. And so, and one of the ways that I like to think about this is the nodes of the moon are the head of the dragon, right, which is the north node Rahu, and the tail of the dragon, the south node Ketu, and they coil right around us. And each coil is like 9 years, right, or 18 years, going back down through history. And so we are sort of meeting a coil here, and we can think back, okay, where was I on the last time that coil was wrapping around and just like really constricting me with this type of intensity. Um, um, yeah, and Wounded Healer is saying patterns in 7-year cycles are also important. Yes. And 7-year cycles tend to be Saturn cycles. Saturn has a 28 and a half, 29 and a half year journey around the zodiac. So every 7 years, Saturn will cross a quarter of the zodiac, right? And so 2.5, Saturn spends 2.5 years in a sign, and then 7 years and a quarter, 14 years and a half. So yeah, just thinking about, right, and this is one of the nice things about astrology is it's a pattern. It's a sort of cycling pattern, right? And it doesn't go in a circle, it gets to go in a spiral, which I find really helpful, right? Because we can also look back and be like, oh, where was I the last time I was last time this pattern came around? Where was I on the last go round in this cycle? How can I turn this into a spiral? How can I make different choices? And I think this is an opportunity that we are getting right now to make different choices and to create change for ourselves and for each other and for the collective. So, um, yeah, again, I don't even know where I want to start here. I take all these notes, right? And I have like lists of notes. And then once I jump in, I'm just like, man, there is so much, right? But um, so this solar eclipse, let's just talk about the kind of mechanics of this solar eclipse happening at 19 degrees and 24 arc minutes, which is the second decan of Aries. The decans are 10-degree spaces in the sky that all are ruled by a different spirit, all have a different energy. And this decan kind of is known as the Lord of Virtue, and it brings up themes of rulership and governance and the benefits and burdens of leadership. Um, and One of the things that we can think about with this decan, right, which is ruled by the sun, and the sun is exalted in Aries, where this eclipse is occurring. And so we have all of this power to the sun, right? Being raised up, the sun exalted in the spring sign of Aries where the light increases, right? So we have this like luminosity in Aries. And also we have this decan, which is ruled by the sun, thinking about leadership, right? Thinking about governance, thinking about sort of forging our way in the world, which is a very Aries quality, and creating our kind of reality as we go, right? But if, excuse me, but if we are creating our reality, right, we are also very responsible for this creation. And I think this is really important um, to be able to understand, right? That if we create something, that's our creation, and we have to take responsibility for how that unfolds. And Austin Coppock, in the much coveted book 36 Faces, says those who would create a world are responsible for the direction of those who reside in it, right? So if we are creating a system, if we're creating an idea, if we're creating a career, if we're creating a vision, it is our responsibility to take care of that and maintain that and to watch over the people that this impacts, right? Sorry, one of the things that's been happening during this eclipse season, I'm like, I'm all good, I got this, right? And then I just like started getting sick. And so I've had like a little bit of a chest thing. And I think that's been kind of my processing experience around what's coming up with this eclipse. But we'll get to that in a second. So as you know, I just wanted to bring that in because I think that the Aries energy is very much about initiating, is about forging, is about pioneering, is about creating, is about sort of jumping in and getting mixed up all the way to the top, which is beautiful, right? Unless it's not, but it can be beautiful, right? And an eclipse is like a supercharged new moon, right? We have the sun and the moon in alignment. They are conjunct during an eclipse. And this is what creates the eclipse, because we have the moon passing between us and the sun, right? And so we excuse me, we can think about this as kind of like a supercharged new moon. And new moons tend to be beginnings where we plant seeds, where we lay foundations, where we set intentions, right? Where we begin to step in, where we jump in, right? Where we're like, this is what I want for the next cycle. And where a new moon is a 28-day cycle, this eclipse is like an 18-year cycle, 19-year cycle, right? So there is maybe like more of this is maybe a little bit more serious, right? And nothing is too serious, right? We like to maintain humor, laughter, lightheartedness, right? I don't. I think that there's too much like chanting and robe wearing in magic, right? We try and like keep it loose here. And I think that's important because I think one of the things that comes up with these celestial events, right, is fear, right, anxiety, FOMO. And I remember this when I was like first getting into astrology, first getting into magic. I was like, oh my god, I have to like do everything perfectly right now or it's never going to work and I'm never going to have the life that I want. And I don't think that's true, right? And I think that we get to participate and we get to co-create. We don't get to direct. We're not directing the show. We are not directing the cosmic ballet, right? We are just sort of atoms, right? Electrons in the kind of you know quantum soup of life, right? And we get to have agency and autonomy and be like, this is what I want to do, this is the direction that I want to go in. And this is a north node eclipse, so it is pulling us right into action, into life, into like reality, right, into the experience of this world, right, to create something so that our souls can grow. And so we get to have a choice in that, right? We are not just like floating along unless we want to be, right? We get to say, this is the direction that I want to go in. These are the choices that I want to make. We get to have agency and autonomy within the context of a larger system, right? And no matter like how tight your ritual is, it doesn't necessarily mean that the forces of the universe are going to bend to you, even on an eclipse. Right. And I think this is really important to remember because it can take the pressure off, right? Because there might be some ideas that, oh, I need to have a perfectly crafted intention, right? To know exactly what I want for the next 18 years, because man, 18 years is a long time, right? And if I mess up right now, if I mess up in this eclipse moment, then maybe I'm going to have a bad life. And I think that's uh, superstition, right? And I think it's really important to not bend to superstition or fear, right? Or the anxiety that if I don't get it just right, then my life is going to fall apart. Because I don't think that's actually how things work, right? That's not been my experience with how things work. Right. I think what is important is being able to be present, being able to show up, being able to be conscious, right? Being able to notice what is happening and what is arising in these moments, right? Because this is a supercharged moment. And this is not necessarily a supercharged moment where we get to say, I'm grabbing the wheel and I'm telling the universe how it's going to be, right? This is more of my experience is this is more of a supercharged moment where it's like, whoa, all of this stuff is coming up, right? I feel this type of way. I am having these feelings. I am sort of, riding the snake, and the snake is taking me where it wants me to go. And how do I like gain awareness of what's happening in this situation so I can respond with clarity, with wisdom, with kindness and compassion instead of being overwhelmed, instead of just being thrown through for a loop. And straight up, like we're all going to be thrown for a loop, and that's okay. And that's part of the process, right? Because I think what happens is we get this breakdown, we get this tower moment, we get the sort of wound coming up, right? Which shows the way to this is how it can be healed. This is how I can respond better. This is how I can respond differently. This is the patterning that was sort of born into me through familial environment, through family of origin, through whatever genetic circumstances, through cultural circumstances, through socioeconomic circumstances. And this is how I learned how to survive. And now I have agency and autonomy to make different choices. And this is what I would like to do. And I think this is a moment for that, right? And being able to work with the conditions that we exist in, right? And being able to notice how these conditions impact and affect us so that we can make good choices based on the direction that we think we would like to go in. And so eclipses are not recommended to practice magic, right? And I think intention setting is important, right? I think intention setting. Um, okay, yeah, Gina Maria says, my creation told me that it will be a process of evolution and transcendence. Yes, right? And how can we sort of step into that and roll with that, right? Instead of like trying to direct the show, because there is nothing more futile than a human being trying to direct the flow of the universe, I have found. And this is from practice, right? I have tried that one out and it didn't work for me. If it can work for you, more power to you. But I think this brings up a really important piece, right? It is recommended, and I have heard it said that it is not recommended to do magic during an eclipse, right? And if we think about like intention setting on a new moon and like magical practices that we might engage with, it's sort of again, astrologers are of two minds. I know some people who were born on eclipses who are like, oh, I love it, right? I'm just like, I'm a native to this. I'm like breathing this air, I'm drinking this water, like it feels good to me. And like this is when I do magic. And I support that, right? For me, who is not a native of an eclipse, I do not have an eclipse in my birth chart. I'm like, I don't know, because there's a lot of energy that comes into the system right now. Right. Again, this is like a supercharged new moon. And I'm going to borrow this from Sam Reynolds, but Sam was talking about, it's sort of like trying to charge your phone by like holding your phone and sticking a fork into the outlet. Right. There's just like way too much power that comes into the system. And this is important to recognize because what we think we might want is not necessarily what's good for us. I'm going to say that again. What we think we might want is not necessarily in our best interest. And again, this is a North Node eclipse. And so Rahu, the dragon's head, is consuming and consuming and consuming, right? Trying to like grow or develop or have an experience or have whatever it's like seeking for, right? Trying to change. And it might just consume and consume and consume and pull us along and get too big too quickly and become overwhelming. And I think about the times in my life where I'm like, oh my God, I want this thing so badly right now. And how like hard I like wished and prayed and magicked for it. And fortunately, I didn't get what I wanted when I wanted it because it would have destroyed me. And I look back now, having a little bit more wisdom, a little bit more space. I'm just thinking about, oh, I like absolutely did not have the container to hold what I was looking for, what I was craving. Right. And if I had gotten it, it would have like really messed things up. And so because we think we want something, right, does not necessarily mean that's the best thing for us to get. And I think that our individual egoic human minds are a little too small to comprehend the vast fabric and network of life. And so we think, oh, this is going to be the best thing for me, but we have no idea of what is outside of our sphere of knowledge, right? And that's, one of the pieces of suffering of life, but also I think kind of the fun. And so being able to trust maybe that what is in store for us might be better than what we think we want in this moment is an interesting thing to consider. Right. Yeah, Gina Maria says, wear the world loosely and allow it to unfold. Exactly. And I think that's a great way of showing up. Right, especially at these supercharged moments where we also might be making decisions or setting intentions from a place of activation, right? From a place of scarcity, from a survival place. And I think that making decisions from scarcity, from desperation, from survival, from activation, those tend not to be the best decisions, right? And so yeah, I just wanted to bring those things in as we kind of move into this eclipse window, right? Into eclipse today, eclipse now, right? Which I also have to say I've been listening to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album on repeat, and that has been kind of my eclipse blanket. Uh, because I think that album really brings up a lot of things. I talked about it a little bit in last week's show, but I was on the Inspired Astrology podcast recently, and we were talking about a Venusian revolution, looking forward to the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, which we're getting on April 20th, which is going down in the Venus ruled sign of Taurus. And we were talking about the necessity for a Venusian revolution and what that might look like. And then, like, last week or something, Beyonce dropped the Cowboy Carter album, which is a country album. And I was talking to a friend about it the other day, and she was like, yeah, Beyonce is just like healing America with this album. And I think that's true, right? It is sort of weaving genres together and really looking at what America means, what country means, what home means. And I don't know, that's enough about the Cowboy Carter, but I just wanted to bring that in because that's something that I've been experiencing through this event that's been helping me out. And so, kind of along these lines, with a solar eclipse, right? This is a new beginning, right? A new start. And the North Node again is moving forward, right? South Node tends to be releasing the past. North Node tends to be an increase and moving forward, and something that pulls us maybe towards our destiny, if you want to think about it that way, right? Pulls us into reality, right? And we can, again, I'm not saying like don't have intentions around this, but like, yeah, hold them loosely, wear them like a loose garment, right? And just notice where we are being pulled and how we can sort of work with this, how so that we're not swimming against the tide. um Another component of this eclipse is that we have Saturn and Mars coming into a conjunction. I believe that conjunction will be exact on Wednesday the 10th. And so we have Mars and Saturn in the Jupiter ruled sign of Pisces. And this is important because Aries is ruled by Mars, right? And so this eclipse is happening in Mars town, right? Aries, Mars town, right? And Mars, the sort of driving force, our passions, our desires, our appetites, the thing that says, I want what I want when I want it, right? I'm going after that. Conjunct Saturn, who is a grumpy old man who's like, hell no, sit your ass down, right? You need to learn a little bit. Right. And so sort of like the gas pedal, like one foot hitting the gas pedal, one foot hitting the brake. And again, maybe reinforcing this theme that what we are driving towards, what we are desiring, what we are wanting, is maybe like we need to slow our roll, right? We also have Mercury up in Gatorade, right? Which is asking us to revise, rethink, reconsider, right? To reorient. What's up, Jeff? Nice to see you. Um, so we have, on one hand, we have this exalted sun in a decan that they rule, who's like, I'm gonna shine my light into the world, and like, this is how I'm gonna do it, right? New beginning, like, this is me, I'm on it. And then these other forces, which are like, maybe like, let's think about that for a minute, or being like, no way, right? Check yourself. And so with this Mars Saturn situation, this is, I think, asking us for the ability to dig deep, right? And being like, is this really what I want to do? And I think this is one of the ways that Saturn functions is we say, I want to do this, and Saturn is like, prove it, right? What are you going to do to make that real, right? How are you going to get this done? And if we're like, well, I didn't actually really want to do that anyway, I just want to be lazy, Saturn's like, good, whatever, right? If we show that restrictive, constrictive, Saturnian energy, that we're actually dedicated to the path, right? That we're willing to put in work, that we're willing to like keep that martial fire burning, right? That we're willing to kindle that and show up every damn day, suit up and show up and like get it done. Saturn's like, all right, you showed me something here, right? You go, right? I'll support that. Yeah. And so, um, I think that this is this moment where we get this opportunity for a new beginning, for to take a new step forward, to even step on a new path. But it's not going to be easy, right? We got to like be dedicated to it. We got to show up. We got to do the work. And we have to keep that kind of passion and fire kindled, right? We got to keep that burning. And if we burn out, it's going to be hard, you know, and like there's no shame in burning out because that, like in our fast-paced modern world, like that is what everything is driving towards, is like utter burnout. And this is like in the individual, this is in society, and this is in like a global ecological sense, right? And so maybe this like driving kind of Aries exploring and conquering force, like could use to like take a step back, right? And to think about the impact of its actions and not just like jump up in there and while out, right? And be like, you know, I'm here, I'm doing me, I know what this needs, right? Maybe like taking a moment to reconsider the impact of our actions, right? Taking a moment to consider the long-term impact of our actions. Saturn is time, long time, right? Lifespans, right? And it's important to like think about how whatever path we are setting out on, whatever like new trajectory we decide to take, might be affecting not only our future, right? But also the future of our children and our children's children and our children's children. You get it, right? On down the line, right? How do we think in long time? You know, how do we think, okay, the things that I want now, what is the impact of this going to be in 18 years, right? Or 180 years? And the Soros cycle, which again, I don't understand, but that is long. Like this eclipse is connected to one that was in like 1501 or something like that. You got to check Sam Reynolds' post. He explains it. And that gives me something to, this is maybe an intention that I can set is learn more about eclipses. But the other thing that I want to talk about now that I've burned like the first half of this little fireside chat, the other thing that I want to talk about, and I think the big piece of this is um the next thing that I want to talk about, and the other big news is that um this eclipse is exactly conjunct Chiron, like to the minute, which I don't know, I think is pretty interesting. Chiron, I love me some Chiron. This is an area that I feel drawn to, and I feel like this planet or planetoid is something that has really characterized and directed my course of study and helped me to become an astrologer and helped me to do the work that I do. And for those of y'all who don't know, Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer, right? Also the teacher. Chiron was a centaur, half man, half horse, who was the product of a adulterous affair between Kronos, Saturn, and the nymph Philyra. And when Chiron was born, Philyra was so ashamed that she abandons him, and he gets picked up by Artemis and Apollo, the sun and the moon, who raise him. Right? And so I think that this is kind of interesting here. We have, you know, the Apollo and Artemis, the sun and the moon, coming together, right with Chiron, right? This moment of rescue, this moment of salvation, this you know, this moment of redemption where this little centaur abandoned by his mom, right, who is so ashamed that she would rather turn herself into a linden tree than be his mother, right, which is pretty heartbreaking. Um, this little Chiron is sort of rescued by the sun and the moon. And so today we have this moment with the sun and the moon coming together and connecting with Chiron. And so one of the things that I think about with this eclipse, with this moment, right, is that it's bringing these things to the surface, right? It's bringing this chironic wound to the okay. It's bringing the Chiron energy to the surface. And Wounded Healer is saying Chiron is in their first house with Venus and the Sun. And I think knowing or having an understanding of where that Chiron is in your individual birth chart is important, because when Chiron is activated by transit in a situation like this, where Chiron is kind of on the stage, right, on the eclipse stage, like all up in the eclipse mix, right? It's bringing it up for the collective, but we're going to understand that as we understand our core wounding through Chiron in our own birth chart, right? I have mine in the sixth house, conjunct my moon. So there's a lot of like safety fears that come up, a lot of survival stuff that I notice with my Chiron. And so just noticing, what's been going on this week, what's going on today, because I think that these things kind of come to a head. For me, I've had like a lot of stuff around like housing and resource and like my vehicle and stuff that I'm like, I need these things to like be okay. Right. Or that's a story that I tell myself. And like I just notice them getting activated or myself getting activated in ways that are like, whoa, that is disproportionate to what's actually happening here. And a person who's wiser than me once said, if it's hysterical, then it's historical. Right. So if like we're noticing like an oversized reaction to something where we're like, whoa, I'm like totally dysregulated all of a sudden out of the blue, we can like take a second and be like, okay, this is probably um yeah, this is probably related to something much older, right? Yeah, and Jeff was saying Chiron fourth house relates to Chiron moon themes. Exactly. Right. And I have Chiron exactly conjunct my moon. So like anytime that gets activated, I'm like, I'm not gonna be okay. I'm gonna die. Right. I like go into shutdown mode. I do a lot of wallowing when my Chiron gets activated. And like I wallow in the same way that I self-soothe, which is kind of interesting. Um, okay, Chiron in the ninth house conjunct Jupiter, right? And yeah, Jupiter is expansive. So my friend over here on Instagram might be like feeling that like some expansion with this wound, right? Or, Jupiter also brings in hope and faith, right? Which I think can be very helpful because Chiron tends to be like, this wound is going to last forever. I'm never going to make it through. And this is part of the story of Chiron, because they are wounded twice. Their second wound comes from Hercules, who hits them with an arrow dipped in hydropoison, hits them in the leg, in the horse part of the body. Um, Taurus, yeah, Moon and Chiron in Taurus in the sixth house. Jeff was asking. And so Chiron gets hit with this poison tipped arrow, and because Chiron is a demigod, right, child of Kronos, they can't die. But the Hydra poison has no cure. So Chiron is stuck kind of in this space of suffering, right? And the need to work really hard to maintain to keep themselves okay. Um, but I think that there's a story always going on in the back of their head. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Oh, like this is hopeless, right? This is never ending, because this is the problem with more immortality, is it's straight up never ending. And I think this is the core problem with Chiron, is the things that are immortal, the things that we believe are never ending, the things that we believe cannot change become overwhelming and kind of crushing, right? And so being able to have faith that it does get better, and also being able to let go of what might be immortal, right? The story that is like, it's always got to be this way. And if it's any different, then it's wrong, right? Or I'm bad, right? Being able to release those. I think that, and I gave a talk for Esar about this, but I think there's also I see trauma as being immortal, because it's a moment, right, that we get locked in, that has no beginning or end, right? We just get activated and we go back to this traumatized moment that is outside of time, and so is immortal, right? And it might have happened 30 years ago, and like when that gets activated, we're right back there, right? And it is not like, it is not okay to be like, just let go of your trauma, right? That's not okay. That's not how that works. But we can work to sort of work through this, right? To process it, to heal it, right? So that we can move out of this space. We can move out of the place where all of a sudden we're activated and we're like suffering in the cave, right? And that may still happen, but we can also develop tools, right? And this is the gift of Chiron. And Chiron is this great healer, right? And in the cave, which is the place that he goes to suffer, is also all of the remedies, all of the books, all of the, balms and salves and, mints and cough drops, right? All of the like healing tools that Chiron has collected to work on himself, right? And to help others. And so when we get like activated and we're back in that cave and like we're wallowing in suffering, right? Chiron teaches us to be able to take a breath, right? Check in and like look around and notice all the tools that we have at our disposal that can help support us, right? The people, the community, the modalities, right? Meditations, the breathing exercises, the food, right? The snacks, the TV shows, whatever, right? And we all have our own way, and there is no one right way. But I think as this eclipse churns up this chironic energy, I think what we get is like these wounds coming to the surface. And that can be really overwhelming. It can be destabilizing. It can be dysregulating. And also, these wounds point the way to their healing. They point the way to, our ability to heal ourselves and then to help others on the journey that we have gone through. Right. And this is also Chiron's gift. Chiron, not just the wounded healer, and I think that's kind of like a small pigeonhole to put this great and wise centaur in. Right. Chiron, also the teacher of heroes. And Chiron is able to teach the heroes because they have done their own work, right? From that core wound of being abandoned by their mother, right? And falling in with Apollo and Artemis, who taught Chiron, right? Chiron is able to take that wisdom, right, and grow from it and keep learning and keep hunting and looking for ways to keep developing so that they can share this wisdom with others, right? And I think this is really the gift of Chiron is the things that don't kill us don't just make us stronger, right? They give us the ability to lead other people out of the darkness, to lead other people out of the underworld, to lead other people out of suffering, right? And this doesn't need to be like a career. You don't need to get paid money for this, right? And I think that capitalism has made it seem like if we like doing something, we need to be paid for it. And if not, then we're a failure at that. And I think that's actually a failure of the system, right? And this can be as simple as being like, oh yeah, like I had this food allergy and like I switched to this type of thing, right? This might be helpful, right? For me, and a little disclosure here, and some of y'all might know this, but I'm an alcoholic and drug addict, and I was gonna die. I was at the end of my rope, and I ended up getting sober through the help of a lot of friends and people who really cared about me, and people I didn't even know who cared about me, who showed up to help me out. And that sort of core wounding that I was trying to heal with alcohol of been learning to heal in other ways and been able to through learning how to heal my own wounds. I've learned astrology, learned magic, learned tarot, and have been able to share that with other people, right? And this is sort of my journey with this. And on the 5th, I celebrated 10 years sober, which is like pretty wild. Never thought that was possible. um Oh yeah. Jeff was asking any thoughts on ruling planet Mars conjunct with Saturn and Pisces. I kind of talked about that, I think, a little bit before you came into the show. But again, Mars, who is ruling this eclipse, ruling Aries, where Chiron, where the sun, where the moon are all conjunct, um you know is this sort of like initiating driving energy, right? This appetite, this fire that's burning. And then Saturn is, oh, thank you. um Saturn is limiting and is constricting, but is like really helping us to kind of develop longer term goals. And I think it's asking for kind of like sustained perseverance, right? And sustained desire, right? It's not this, I want this and I want it now. It's like, okay, I want this and what am I willing to do, right? And how am I willing to adjust and how am I willing to work with the conditions that are that I'm experiencing in order to make like what I am trying to initiate, right? What I'm trying to grow into, what am I trying to do a reality? Saturn is the planet of reality, right? And anything that we want to make possible in this world needs to go through Saturn, right? And as again, as this eclipse, I think has this like initiating energy, right? And this, oh, congratulations to your husband. Yeah, that's excellent. 8 years. Wounded Healer saying their partner celebrated 8 years sober from drugs and alcohol. And yeah, and I think this is not just about drugs and alcohol. This is recovery from anything, right? This is recovery from trauma. This is recovery from like a bad breakup. This is recovery from depression. This is recovery from, the suffering that we experience in life because that shit is real, right? And as we work through that and find ways of making it okay for ourselves and ways of growing, right, we are able to show other people who have gone through these experiences, hey, I can help you. I'm here for you, right? And so one of the things that I've been thinking about with this eclipse, right? We have the moon passing over the sun. And if we have the sun, right, this shining, radiating light, which is this image of coherence, right? Identity, right? Maybe an image of the self, right? That is like shining brilliantly in the sky, right? That is consistent, that all of the everything orbits around. And then we have the moon kind of passing over that and blacking it out for a little bit, right? And what happens, right, when we get a total eclipse is we see the stars behind. We see, oh, snap, like it's not just this, right? There's something else there. And this sort of eclipse moment when the moon conjuncts the sun, thought of in alchemy as the soul niger, the black sun, right? Which Marie-Louise von Franz, who's a Jungian analyst, talks about as the unconscious coming up, right? So as the sun is blocked out by the moon, as this black sun, right, shines in the sky, that is the unconscious coming through the coherence and the chaos, right? The stars, the multiplicity shining through the coherence of the ego sense of self and identity, right? And also this happening right on Chiron, bringing up this core wounding and also the ability to heal this, right? And the unconscious is pretty powerful. It's pretty intense, right? And it's also connected to our collective unconscious, right? And it's something that it's unconscious because we don't really have access to it. And when it comes up, it can be really destabilizing, right? And it can also point the way to what is the next step, right? This is the place that we access through dreams, through psychedelic experiences. And I think this is also a place that Chiron kind of dwells. Chiron, again, half human, half horse, right? And the human part, right, is that solar consciousness, that logic, right? That this is the way it is. This is the knowledge that I read in a book, right? And then there's the animal part, which is the instinctual, right? It is the intuitive. It is the part that is maybe connected to the collective. That is like, yeah, I didn't read this in a book, but this plant told me its name and it told me it was good for this, right? And I think part of that core wounding in Chiron and also in humans is that separation, right? That being kind of pulled apart. And I think we live in a culture that is much more kind of masculine, yang, solar consciousness, right? That's like, this is the way it is, right? This is the cohering principle. And if you don't believe in this, then you're done for, right? And then there's the animal intuitive part, right? That is more yin, that is more connected to natural cycles, maybe more connected to nature, maybe more rooted in the earth. And again, Chiron, 4 horse legs rooted down into the earth, right? And this is the part that Chiron experiences their wound in the animal part, in the horse part, right? And as the sun, that solar coherence becomes blocked out by the moon, this sort of intuitive, right? The chaos of the multiplicity comes in, which can be overwhelming to a system that only knows coherence and solar identity. And so I think what we get the opportunity to do in ourselves, and as we do this in ourselves, this emanates out into the collective, I think, I hope, right, is being able to hold both of these parts, right? And this is a piece with an eclipse, right? The eclipse is considered like the death of the king, or is foreboding the death of the king, right? And I don't think that this means that anyone's going to die, right? I don't think that there's going to be regime changes. I don't think that there's going to be like apocalypses. I don't think any of the like kind of scary stuff that people are talking about are going to come to pass, because I think things unfold slowly, right? I may be wrong, who knows, right? But when we think about the death of the king, we think about the death of an old system that has consolidated power, right? And consolidated power into old rituals that are no longer connected to the flow of life, right? And if we think about maybe how spiritual practices began, there was like, okay, like we go to this place because there's a living spirit here, and we like are honoring this living spirit through doing these things that we know that this living spirit likes. And then over generations and centuries, people forget about the living spirit, and they're like, oh yeah, we just do this thing because like my grandfather told me to do this thing, and we go there on this day and we do this thing, and like, okay, great, let's go out and have Cracker Barrel, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that, but it is maybe like forgotten about the living spirit that it's connected to, right? And the old king, and they talk about this in Fraser's The Golden Bough, and the Jungians are all into this, and mythology is all about this. The old king who like holds power, right, and refuses to let it go, has lost their connection with that flow of life, and so the land becomes infertile, right? The land ceases to grow because we have become disconnected with that living spirit, right? And so we need a new hero to come and kill the king, to regenerate and redeem the culture, to redeem the system, and to bring the land back into connection with the flow of life. And this story is told in the Grail myth of the Fisher King, which is one of my favorites. And I saw a talk by what's his name, Rick Levine, years ago, and he was like, "Yo, if you want to know about Chiron, read this book. It's a Robert Johnson, the Jungian, not the blues musician, who wrote a book called The Fisher King and the Handless Maiden, about core wounding and about wounding." And, I started reading it and I love it, and I got really into the story, and it's been a pet project of mine. There's also this one, which is written by Emma Young, Carl Jung's daughter, and Marie Louise von Franz, and this one is impenetrable. I was trying to read this last night to prepare for this, and that one's a little over my head. I'm gonna keep working on it. But anywho, real quick, the Fisher King is this king who becomes wounded in the leg, right? Or in the genitals, in the generative function, and cannot rule anymore. And all he can do is sit around and fish and sort of lament, right? And he won't die, and the wound won't heal. So he's just in this place of suffering, much like our homie Chiron, right? And so because he cannot rule, the kingdom goes fallow, right? Nothing will grow, because the kind of head of the kingdom, who has the divine power, doesn't have the ability to hold it, or doesn't have the ability to generate, right? The kingdom goes fallow. And all he does is like sit around and fish all day. And everybody's like, man, this kingdom sucks. But one day, a young knight named Parzival, who is a fool, right? He's a kid who's wearing like a baggy shirt that his mom sewed him, right? Who's like, I'm gonna go off and be a knight, right? And so goes off on the knight road doing acts of chivalry and whatnot. And he comes upon the Fisher King, and they start talking, and they're talking about fishing, and fishing with John, and different stuff that they know about fishing. And the Fisher King's like, come back to the castle. We're gonna have this banquet, and I'd love to have you as a guest. I mean, nothing grows here anymore, but we make do with what we got. And so they go and have this banquet, and Parzival's sitting there at the head of the table, as an honored guest. And they do this weird procession where they parade around all of these objects, a giant plate and a cup and a lance. And Parsifal's like, whoa, that's really weird. Like, what's up? And the Grail King's like, yo, that's the Holy Grail. Parsifal's like, huh, oh, that's weird. But my uncles told me I'm just a little kid and not to speak out of turn and not to ask older people stupid questions because I got beat up for doing that. My uncles would smack me around when I would just keep asking why, right? So they sort of beat it out of me. And so I'm not going to ask, like, what is this? Or who does this serve? And so they have their do their procession, have their feast, and in the morning, Parsival's like, okay, cool, that was great. Like, gets up, doesn't see anybody in the castle, it's empty, and they leave. Right, and they are walking back on their night road, and they meet somebody in the village who's like, hey, where you come from? Parcel's like, oh yeah, that crazy castle that's actually has totally disappeared and isn't there anymore. So it's like, whoa, did you ask the Grail question? And Parcel's like, what do you mean Grail question? They're like, stupid, stupid, stupid. You're supposed to ask when they do that weird parading thing that they do, who does the Grail serve? Right. The other question, like asterisk, is what ails thee? Right? What's the matter? And Parcel was like, damn it, I had a shot. I could have been a contender and I blew it. And the woman's like, well, better luck next time. So Parsival, this young knight, goes off and this is Jeff in a roundabout way. This is answering your question about Saturn and Mars. Parsival goes off and they learn their knighting trade and they develop and they go through adventures and you know grow and eventually after a Saturn cycle they come back to the after their Saturn return they come back to the castle where they are welcomed yet again, and this time Parsival, when they do the parading thing, stands up and says, but king, who does the Grail serve? And the king is magically healed and there is redemption of the land and everything is all good again. And I know this is kind of a weird story, and this is maybe one of the reasons that I'm fascinated with it. And I know that we're sort of running out of time, and so I'll try and land the plane relatively quickly. But we have this king, right? Again, the sort of power and potency of the area of the land who has been wounded and is just locked in their suffering and has no way out. And because all they do is suffer, right? And sit there and fish for redemption, nothing happens. Everything is stuck, everything is trapped, right? And so they need this young knight, this young energy to come into the system to redeem it, right? To redeem it with curiosity, to redeem it with new energy, right? And this is maybe that like Mars energy, right? This kind of young buck who's like showing up and wants to be a knight and wants to like do their thing, right? But they don't have the age and wisdom to know the right question. They don't have the self-knowledge to know, okay, I can stand up and ask, right? My voice is important. I am important in this situation. They have been waiting for me. And I think maybe this is something that also comes up with the eclipse, right? How to have the maturity to know what we can handle and where we can show up, where we can take up space. And I think Parsival needs to go through this maturing process, this maturation process, which hopefully doesn't take us all a Saturn cycle, right? I mean, it will as we go through our Saturn relationship, right? But to think about, the maturity that it takes to be able to claim that space, to step on stage, to be at the right place at the right time, right? And the fool, Parsival, kind of stumbles into this, but they also lack the maturity, which I think we are getting from Saturn, as Saturn is conjunct Mars, the ruler of Aries, where this eclipse is occurring. And so, you know, coming back to the feast and the Grail question, right? And this is the piece that I've always struggled with because I've heard multiple different sort of interpretations of it. None of them are satisfying, and that's why I was trying to read this big ass book. Um, but the question is either what ails thee, right? Or whom does the grail serve? And in the last couple minutes here, I just want to unpack both of these, right? The question, what ails thee, right? What is wrong? I think is a really important one. And I've talked about it on this whatever I do here before, right? But there tends to be a lot of like, I know what is wrong with people. I know what this place needs, right? Or this person is just messed up, right? These people are wrong, right? Their beliefs are off. And there tends to be a lot of judgment and not a lot of, oh man, that sounds really hard. What's going on with you? How can I help? Right? And how can, as the moon blots out the sun and the multiplicity appears and Chiron sort of rises to the surface, we can ask that question, what's going on, right? How can I help? And that's all that suffering king needed to be able to regenerate the land, was somebody to be like, oh man, that's a bummer. What's going on, right? The other question I think is also really important and really appropriate to ask. Whom does the grail serve? Right? The grail, which, blah, yada, 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 caught the blood of Christ after the crucifixion, was at the Last Supper, was what Indiana Jones and Sean Connery sought for in the quest for the Holy Grail or the Last Crusade, right? Um, and this sort of sought after powerful object, right? That bestows great power on it, on whoever possesses it, right? That's why they made The Last Crusade with Harrison Ford and Sean Connery. But to think about, right, the Grail King, the person who possesses the Grail, right? Maybe they're in suffering because they think it belongs to them, right? But really, the power of the Grail is not, this is about me, this is about us, right? We get to be the vessel of the divine force of the universe that moves through us. And if we think it's about us, right, that energy gets blocked, right? And nothing grows. It is to think about who the Grail serves the divine, right? The Grail serves the everything, as I like to think about it, as the stuff. And we are maybe little grails walking around containing the energy of the stuff, right? That we get to share with each other, right? It is not about me consolidating it and holding it and growing in power because it feels good, right? Or because I have scarcity, right? Or trauma, right? It's about having that energy pour through us and flow through us and being able to share that with each other, right? And so moving forward today, we can think about, what's the matter and what am I doing here, right? Who does this serve, right? And how can I be in service of something much bigger than me, right? How can I be in the service of healing for the collective, for the self, for each other, and for the collective? Because we're all in this together, my friends. um, and we're about at time, but before we go, I just want to offer one more thing. Please indulge me if you will. And thanks for sticking it out with me today during this eclipse. And I'm very honored to be able to share this moment with everybody. Um, I couldn't think of a better way of going through this eclipse. But to just sort of bring this to a close and to finally land the plane, Chiron's symbol is a key, right? I would hold it up, but I don't have it, and I didn't think about doing that. But you can look it up. It's a K with a circle at the bottom. It looks like a key. And so maybe for a moment, as this eclipse is maybe wrapping up or hitting its peak or wherever we are with this eclipse, we can just take a moment and sort of settle in and maybe close our eyes or take a soft gaze if that feels okay for you. And just think about, as the moon covers the sun and reveals everything behind, the multiplicity, the depth of space. In this moment where we are no longer blinded by the sun, this moment of quiet, perhaps a key is revealed. A key appears. The key of Chiron. The key that can open doors to our healing. key that opens a door to a way forward, and a key that can perhaps close a door to what no longer serves us, what's no longer necessary, to old stories and outdated ways of thinking or being that we can close and turn a key on, knowing that we can always revisit that door if we need to. In this eclipse, we get a key. Just maybe taking a moment, just allowing yourself to be here and thinking about what this key might open for you. What doors, ideas, new stories, ways of healing, ways of being might be open for you. And perhaps we can think about turning this key and opening a door of support, support for ourselves, support for others, support for each other. I'm going to invite you to just take a moment and think about the shape and weight of this key, really feeling it in your hand. And just thinking about what you would like to unlock for yourself moving forward, and how whatever that brings you, we can share with others and take others along on this healing journey. Because the Grail serves us all. And with that, my friends, I will bid you adieu. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for, being my friends. I wish you all a very happy and safe eclipse. Um, I don't know. Check me out on Astrostar. It's a great astrology app. Oh, congratulations, Jeff. Jeff is saying, Cosmic Cousins is saying they literally received a key this morning to their new home. Mazel tov, my friend. Congratulations. So, yeah, if you like this and you want to hang out some more, I do this every week on Astrostar Live, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Mountain time, 12 Central, and 1 p.m. Pacific time. Also, I think I'm going to do a talk. Apparently, there's been a lot of questions on Astrostar about fashion. So I think I'm going to do a fashion talk on Astrostar. So I'll let everybody know when I do that. Astro fashion with Blind Stallion Space Wizard. Also, if you need a soundtrack to this eclipse, I do a weekly astrology themed radio show that you can find on SoundCloud. And there's a link in my stories on Instagram. Also a link in my bio. So check that out, because this week's set is fire. And I talk about some other things like that. Sun 19 degrees. Ooh, somebody's getting an eclipse. Cool. Well, yeah, I wish everybody lots of luck with this eclipse. Remember, drink lots of water, stay near water, hydrate yourself, and just, let it move through. Let it move through, and I'm here for you. If you're interested in astrology readings, check me out on the Astrostar app. There's also a bunch of excellent astrologers on that app as well, who are doing readings and dropping knowledge. So there's a link in my stories for y'all checking this out on YouTube. There's a link in the show notes, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, that's all the astro weather that's fit to print, my friends. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, may the force be with you. I'll see you all next Monday. And yeah, enjoy. Bye now.